This is actually an optimization problem.
Are we too dependent on AI that there's no macam human intervention that allowed for such things to happen?
We need to know whether it is an individual inside job or whether it is a conglomerate of people.
Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Headlines, the go-to space for the top stories that made the headlines and more. I am Amalina Kamal. Now, when we travel, most of us actually go through airport security without giving it much thought, right? So we queue, we place our bags on the conveyor, and then we walk through the scanner just to get to our gate in time, of course. But there's more that goes behind the scenes. Of course, recent headlines, which once again have put Malaysia's airport security to the forefront, prompting a lot of us to ask, are our airports actually safe? And how do the security systems actually work? Today, we're exploring how aviation security and safety really works here, not just in the country, but also internationally, and what more can be done to ensure that threats that continue to evolve can be addressed. Of course, I'm not here alone. I'm joined by Associate Professor Major Dr. Mohamed. Harridon Mohamed Suffian. Welcome, Prof, to Beyond the Headlines.
All right, thank you for inviting me.
Prof, first up, of course, because of the issue of the contraband that was smuggled out and then having to land into a different territory, our neighboring country territory, especially with a contraband that is very heavy when it comes to the penalty like that, right? A lot of the spotlight goes back to the point of origin, which is Malaysia, unfortunately. True. And it also points back to the carrier that allowed for that to happen now. But when we talk about airport security itself first, right? When incidents like this occur, is it fair to just blame the whole framework based on one single incident?
We have to investigate in a very discreet manner, in a very in-depth manner, what will be the blind spot with regards to the procedures and also the execution of the security at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Of course, we're not assigning blame, but we want to identify what will be the factors, what will be the reasons for the failure of the system. In aviation, safety is number one, but when you do investigation, the main proponent, the main gist is to not assign blame. What we want is a feedback loop, a very extensive feedback loop so that we can improve the system. So by doing this investigation, we are not only identify what will be the blind spot of the procedures, what will be the lacking of the execution, which personnel are involved in the issue, but all of this contribute to the ecosystem of the feedback. We're not assigning blame. You have to remember, in aviation, if we have incident investigation, the main gist, the main proponent is to investigate what will be the main primary reason. We can do a fishbone analysis, we can do the in-depth analysis, and we will derive what will be the main reason, what will be the primary reason. And from there onwards, we try to improve the system. Right. So an investigation that's going on, the ongoing investigation, the ongoing look upon the procedures and protocols, and also look upon the personnel, their background checks, their financial checks. This is not to assign blame. We want the integration of fidelity upon the system, the security system at the airport, and also during flight.
I mean, also because in that feedback loop, you have to analyze all theories, I suppose, possible, maybe loopholes or gaps, right?
Yes, that's true.
Tapi a lot of people might misconstrue because sometimes, like you mentioned, at least we're not assigning blame, but we have to actually check. But risk management itself, especially when it comes to aviation security, is it foolproof? Is there a formula that can ensure that no criminality gets passed through areas like airports?
Risk assessment is good. It's a very good approach. It's always a good mitigation plan to have that risk assessment. You need to ask the organization, what is your risk appetite? Is your risk appetite high or is it your risk appetite low? And it has to be in parallel with the cost because we are talking about financial capital that goes in. If you want to have that fidelity in risk management, of course, the cost would be high. So there should be a balance between risk and also the cost effectiveness of the organization because we also want the organization to be sustainable in the long term. We do not want the airport to be closed after 50 or 100 years because we have cases where airport could not sustain itself in terms of the financial sustainability, economic sustainability. security, and there are cases where airports were closed because of that. But the main proponent in aviation is always safety. Safety is always number one. So of course you need to invest that high financial capital upon the airport. One thing for sure is that the security at airport, not only at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, but other international airports like Narita, Haneda, and also Heathrow Airport, their fidelity, the integrity of their security system is quite high. It's quite high, very high. They have integrated artificial intelligence for their surveillance camera. If you look at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and also Tokyo, Haneda or Narita, we have AI, artificial intelligence, and also machine learning and neural network integrated upon the camera surveillance. What it does is that it flags the behavior, the gait, the cadence, the gesture, and also the walk of the passengers, of the people surrounding the airport. And upon this, it would assist the personnel to identify erratic behavior of the passengers, erratic behavior of the, for example, personnel or those that converge through the airport. And with this implementation, with this additional AI functionalities, we can do a lot in identifying the erratic behavior. But one has to remember that no system is perfect in this world. It's developed by man. It is man-made. So nothing is perfect in the world. When you develop an airplane, there'll always be maintenance cases. When you develop a car, there are always maintenance cases as well. Failures of the components of the car, failures components of the aircraft, failures component of a trolley, failures of component of the wheel cut, for example, a very simple mechanism. For example, a bicycle as well. A very simple mechanism to go from one point to the other point. Still, there is failure with regards to that.
Prof, okay, because you did mention about in terms of the layers of aviation security, and in international airports such as KLIA, we do have that machine learning aspect, right? But yes, nothing's perfect. Apparently, things still slip through the cracks. But when it comes to the control, the access control itself, are we too dependent on AI that there's no macam human intervention that allowed for such things to happen? Perhaps you would like to add to this in terms of if we're too reliant on technology alone. Perhaps that's one of the reasons why there's this criminalities that occur.
There's always a high possibility that we are too reliant upon machine, too reliant upon the software, too reliant upon AI. One has to remember AI is only a tool. It's not a foolproof system. It's only a tool to aid the personnel. It's only a tool to aid human being. So the functionality of the human being, the emotion of the human being, the experience, the heuristic of the human being should always be there. So to have a personnel, for example, with 5 years experience using AI, that would probably be different with regards to the integrity and fidelity of a personnel that have 25 years experience using AI. So the emotion of the personnel should always be there, because sometimes there are cases when you do research, instincts plays a very important role. The heuristic, the experience of the personnel plays an important role to flag the erratic behavior, the anomalies of the passengers or the personnel. And with the AI, that would complement his decision or her decision in promulgating that issue.
Yeah, because behavior detection is
true.
something that's very subjective.
Yes,
as well,
it's
right?
very subjective. And several airports, they have behavior specialists, part of their security personnel. They are the one that would analyze the video feed, and they would go hand in hand with the AI. They will analyze the behavior, the gait, for the cadence, the walk, the gesture, the micro expression of the passengers and the personnel. All of these are trained by the personnel that are involved in the behavior analysis. They train themselves with the trainer. They train themselves for several years to actually take a look at the micro expression of the personnel, micro expression of the passenger, the gesture, to identify whether this is an outlier or whether it is actually the baseline of the norm. And from there onwards, you have a concrete system to deter any types of smuggling or to deter any infidelity at the airport.
Yeah, because at Kuala Lumpur International Airport also, there's a lot of enforcement agencies, multiple enforcement agencies actually, which are working together to ensure that security is top notch. But unfortunately, of course, when cases like this happen, this week alone, apparently it's not just one case, 2 more cases of such smuggling having to occur, right, in Jakarta, and then the other one in a different airport. So it again, it goes back to the point of origin.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, we talked about like the security protocols that happen within the airport itself, macam. But then can we like go a little bit more deeper? For instance, macam okay, cargo screening itself, and
Okay.
also things that happen on the hangar.
All right.
Perhaps, Prof, maybe to give our audience that sort of clarity. Okay, when it comes to cargo screening, pula, is it literally just having to pass the bag through the belt and the X-ray screen, and then is there going to be another layer of checks? Which I know certain airports they use macam dogs or whatever lah. This
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
extra layer of detection kan.
Uh, there should always be layers of checks. The International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, Annex 17, has delineated what will be the protocols, what will be the procedures, what will be the regulation with regards to the safety of the airports and the safety of the flight. Cargo, for example, we want to detect explosive. We want to detect that organic material, so that will be not that that would not be detrimental to the flight. You also want to detect weapons, for example, firearms that were used by the passengers to overcome the technical crew or the cabin crew during flight, so that they could hijack or sabotage the airplane. So that is very, very important. That is very vital. So of course, even KLIA have that system assisted by AI, assisted by machine learning, neural network, to identify this kind of weapon. When you have goods, when you have, for example, materials that go through the X-ray scanner, these objects will be color coded. They will be color coded in orange, green, and also blue. Orange means that it is an organic material. Explosive are color coded in orange. So if they identify that this orange colored object is denoted as an explosive, they will flag it up. So you need experience as well. The AI is there to color code, take a look at the terrain, the contour, and also the depth, the density of the object, and color coded it according to blue. Blue means heavy metal, and green means a mixture of many different material. But the interpretation of this contour, of this density, should come from the human personnel. So the human personnel will be trained to decipher this color-coded material. So that layer of security has been implemented in Kuala Lumpur International Airport and other airports as well. So if you ask me, how does the illegal substance go through? So the in-depth investigation has to be accounted because the procedures are there, the technology are there, the personnel are there. But what happened? So this is the one that is very perplexing in the aviation world.
Betul.
But it is good that this happened. We can have a very good feedback loop. We can have not a good time, but a comprehensive evolution upon the security system of not only Kuala Lumpur International Airport, several airports as well. Because this, unfortunately, will be a case study. Yes, in the aviation world, when something happens, it will be a case study. It will be deciphered by other organization, other aviation organization internationally, and they would study this case. And from there onwards, we try to improve the system, not only in Malaysia, but in other countries as well.
Prof, okay. Before we go to the next one, hangar punya security pula macam mana? In terms of like, because the hangar is like where the aircraft would be lah. And then until it goes on and then to load, to take up the load dekat, if commercial punya flights, then you will have passengers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when the hangar punya security protocols, is it different? Because certain things left unsupervised. You get what I mean? So there's a lot of like room for things to happen. So in these areas, like what would be the best sort of macam monitoring in terms of the element tu?
That is why we have rules and regulation when we employ personnel. For example, we employ pilots, cabin crew, or maintenance crew, or technician, or those are involved in the aviation world. Even ground handling crews, they have go through the training. And when they go through the training, there's the human factor side of training that would go through. They would go through as well, and they would impart. The organization would impart to them the integrity, the procedures of integrity, the procedures of fidelity upon them, so that they would not go astray with regards to their functionality. Of course, there would be cases where technicians or handlers, they would insert certain illegal substances upon the cargo or baggages of passengers. This happened. There are cases, if you take a look at cases all around the world. But to prevent this, of course, this is part of the training. And also, there are surveillances as well. in the hangar, there are surveillances as well.
24/7.
Yeah,
obviously.
24/7.
Just to assure the audience as well, because a lot of people don't realize now also you can't just go into the hangar
Yeah, you
without
can't.
proper authorization.
You need
right?
authorization.
Yeah.
So even though you're from other departments, you need authorization within the organization to go through the hangar and to do some tinkering or to do your functionality at that hangar.
But Prof, like, why do you think there are still cases of like, this is probably not a security breach, lah, but cases of, I'm sure you remember this. There were two aircrafts that were not, apa kata, that were not claimed, and then the airport was like wondering like, okay, whose aircraft is this? Ada two aircraft, I forgot lah, but apparently it's like some European country. Wow. Like you can actually store something without having a proper inventory tu lah.
Yeah, it happens. Then it bogs down to the procedures and the protocols. What will be the documentation? What will be the intense documentation imparted upon the organization, and also the observant, the vigilance of the personnel. If you are observant, if you are proactive, if the personnel is proactive and vigilant with regards to that, then that wouldn't happen. So the protocol is there, the procedures are there, but the execution part, perhaps is lacking.
Yeah. No, because it's funny because then a lot of people who don't necessarily know, like the larger audience at B, is like, oh, so then our airport is actually a parking lot for, you get what I mean? So then the perception towards like, oh, the international airport having to have a certain standards. By right, things like this should always be detected.
Yeah, that's true. And also the airport fees is quite high for you to park the airport. So that's why they are miscreant in this issue. They're trying to deter paying the fees.
Yeah. Prof, okay, since we talked about dari segi macam the intervention methods, right? We already discussed the layers of the security protocols from the airport to the hangar to even the cargo itself. But at least for the government's immediate order in ensuring the airport security is tightened, they want to deploy police personnel alongside aviation security teams. So, Prof, I want to get your reaction on this. To what extent having to impose enforcement officers as part of the protocol actually can help the processes, tightening whatever needs to be tightened? Because I thought like we're already working with multiple enforcement agencies, right? You want to add more resources to that?
Currently, we have many different agencies working with regards to the security at the airport, especially at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. We have the Custom Department, we have AFSEC, Aviation Security, and the police also comes in as well, and also the Immigration Agency. And the Border Control Agency also have their functionality at the airport. Even though we have several multi-layered agencies doing their own functionalities, we need to coalesce their functionalities. We need to find what will be the optimum spot, what will be the optimum functionality for all of these agencies. So there should be an investigation upon this, an in-depth study upon many different functionalities of many different organizations at one particular area, but how do you optimize it? This is actually an optimization problem. I always tell my clients, because I do some consultancy at the site, so I always tell my clients, everything that you do, you need to have that optimization process. Even though you have the resources, let's say you have 10 resources, 100 resources, but if you can't optimize that resources, if you can't extract the main criteria of these resources, how are you going to optimize them? So the same thing here happened to this issue. We have many different agencies working at Kuala Lumpur International Airport. But what about the optimization of these resources? How do you complement them? I mean, they work in parallel. Of course, they work in parallel. They have discussion, always ongoing discussion. But the optimization process should be there. And now you want to take in the police department. You want to put that into that equation. Of course, that will be good. There will be intense scrutiny of the passengers, of the cargoes, of the crews, of the technical and so the cabin crews. But you need to remember, how do you optimize all of these resources? No point having, let's say, 10 agencies, 20 agencies. Let's put APM there as well. Let's put Bomber there as well to the investigation. But no point if you can't extract that optimization processes. So it's about optimization.
The question then goes back to like our Civil Aviation Authority, or at least the person, the enforcement agency in question that's supposed to manage, let's say, the cabin crew punya security screening, then it's like, you guys are not good enough, is it? Why are you guys incompetent? Is it because of you guys are not equipped with enough your own resources that you need another support? So those things are still very much macam undetermined yet, right? But in a sense whereby we want to talk about having to learn from recent events, because KLIA is not the first to experience such incident. To be fair,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in that particular case alone, so police actually monitored the movement of that pilot.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I mean, it's widely reported that he went to Ampang, blah, 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 to semua, and then going towards the security, and then eventually ended up in our neighbouring country. But the aspect of like how did it pass is still very much vague. A lot
Yeah,
of people macam,
correct.
a lot of people are actually putting a pressure on having to disclose the CCTV footage.
Yes.
So your thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of concerns there. Because one aspect we can disclose the CCTV footage, but on the other aspect it would impede the investigation because then it would be sub judice.
Yeah.
What's your take?
There are two shades of perspective looking at this issue. If you look at the Indonesian authority,
Yeah, they're very like
yes,
head-on.
yes,
macam
correct. They are
updating
very
us.
transparent
Yeah,
with regards to
correct.
that. The CCTV footage, the video analysis, their interview with the suspect. All of these are dispersed through the media. So that's their perspective. They want to be very, very transparent. The Indonesian authorities want to be transparent. And along the line, they do their own investigation. Another perspective that we have here in Malaysia is that if we put that video footage out, if you disperse that video footage, that CCTV footage at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, that will impede the investigation as you have stipulated earlier. Yes, that would impede the investigation. That would give points and pointers to those in the criminal ring to actually capture relevant information. And from there onwards, they could evolve their functionalities, their processes, so that they will overcome the authorities as well. So the perspective of the Malaysian authority of not trying to disperse the media footage or the CCTV footage is quite a good approach if you look at that perspective. But somehow there always need to be in-depth investigation. Is this an individual functionality by the pilot, by the second officer, or is it a ring of criminals involved in this activity?
Because we know that the bigger question, or a lot of us are considering, is like, obviously this is not an isolated case, right? Because if a second officer, in fact, if a second officer, level 2, is able to bring that much load, that much contraband, not contraband, like actually it's
illegal substance.
It's illegal substance. It is contraband, but it is like a very heavy type of illegal substance, crime itself. That level dah boleh bawa macam tu, you question about the network, the syndication.
Yes, that's true.
That's like regional. So quickly we go into the transnational crime ni, Prof. When we talk about this particular situation and like report, we only focus on just one incident alone.
Oh yeah.
We don't tackle the root cause, which is like that network itself dah established. Even in the destination country.
Yes, correct.
Because a lot of the targeting is towards the point of origin, which is Malaysia lah.
True. So there has to be a cross functionality between the authorities in Malaysia and so the authorities in Indonesia, because we want to unearth the ring, the criminal ring. Whether it is an individual functionality or does it involve groups of people that assist the pilot in smuggling the illegal substances. And if you look cases all around the world, most of them, majority of them, are actually ring of crimes. It's actually actuated by criminals in a ring. So we need to know whether it is an individual inside job or whether it is a conglomerate of people in the inside that actually actuate these criminal activities. So from there onwards, then only we can uncover or we can eradicate and disperse this criminal ring activities. So historical data is very, very important. And not taking a look at the isolated cases, but take a look at the whole genre of the issues that were unearthed during the concourse of 10 or 20 years at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and several airports as well in Malaysia. Because Kuala Lumpur International Airport is not the only international airport here in Malaysia.
Penang.
Yes, we have Penang, we have Kota Kinabalu, we have Kuching as well. So
Langkawi as well, right?
Langkawi as well. So take a look at the historical data, go in parallel, and do that cross-checking. This is where mathematical model can come in. This is where linear regression, genetic algorithm, this is where linear programming can come into play. They would do this cross-checking of this enormous volume of data and they can actually give you a stipulation what actually is going on.
Prof, sorry, genetic apa?
Algorithm.
Algorithm. How does that work?
It is a algorithm, mathematical algorithm.
Okay.
Where you try to optimize the situation. Take a look at the data, try to optimize and give you an optimum solution with regards to that particular issue. So because when you take a look at the historical data, 10 or 20 years, and you want to identify, you want to extract whether it is a ring of crimes, you need to do the analysis. So cross-checking can be done by using that mathematical algorithm.
To see whether there's a trend
Yes,
and then
there's
there's
a trend.
specific focus
Yes,
in this particular area.
It is about pattern recognition, whether you can extract
Right.
that pattern from the hordes of data, from the volumes of data.
Of course, this is aside from the random checks that
Yep.
is done manually,
Correct,
right?
correct.
I mean, just to give our audience my own personal experience when it comes to these random checks, because I still remembered one time though, after COVID, I traveled to Indonesia for once. And yes, because Indonesia is quite tight when it comes to diorang punya airport security.
Yeah.
If let's say they do their random checks, they just do it. I
Yep.
remembered I was flagged and my luggage was like swiped and everything. But it made me question, like, how was I flagged? Because I was just only bringing a hand luggage down.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they check everything. And then they even ask, like, what I work as. Thank God at the time I brought my media card.
That's good.
Like, a lot of questions they did. And then I'm
Yes.
just wondering, I spent about 1 hour and a half at that customs area.
Alright.
And then macam had to ask the question with them being puzzled. Oh, okay. So then it got me asking, like, did they flag me? But they wanted to flag someone else, but they misflagged. I'm not too sure. So when those things happen, right, during random checks, what sort of behavior do they detect?
I think the authorities have a set of protocols and rules
Yeah.
that they have to adhere to, especially the gait, the way you walk, the cadence, the pace that you walk, your intention, your micro expression, and also, for example, the tilt of your head, whether you're tilting your head to the left or to the right very frequently or not, whether you're observing the scenario 360 degrees. So those are the kind of components that will be mastered by this authority. They go through this training to identify erratic and anomaly behavior. And also, based upon information that they get, this is updated information that they get from their own information gathering team. And also, this information are gathered internationally as well. They would get information and knowledge from other authorities, from other countries as well. For example, my wife was flagged the other day at Kuala Lumpur International Airport because she looked Korean. So they thought that she was bringing in beauty products from Korea.
Oh, okay.
Well, she was not. So
Yeah.
they look at certain information that they get from their international counterpart.
It's profiling lah.
Yeah,
right,
it's like
basically.
profiling.
It just sometimes you fit
Yeah.
the profile and then you just have to go through it. And actually, it's the important thing is for you to remain calm,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Because I was just thinking about my own experience. I'm like, if this were to happen with any other person, probably they're like, why am I here? Questioning the level of check or the how do I say, the scrutiny that you're experiencing, because
Yeah.
it was very invasive. I had to swap for everything. That was my first and only time.
Yes.
This was after COVID. Perhaps maybe after COVID the security tightening is a bit more heightened across all airports internationally.
Yeah, perhaps. But if you look at the technical data, if you look at the data from the aviation groups, we can see there's an increase of scrutiny by the aviation personnel, aviation security personnel, and especially the evolution of the technology. For example, in Seoul, a lot of biometrics are utilized.
In Seoul?
Yeah, in Seoul,
Okay.
at Incheon Airport, a lot of biometrics are utilized so that the passengers will be scrutinized with regards to their identification, to their attributes. And also, we have biometrics at Kuala Lumpur International Airport as well. So that's good. That's a compliment. That's actually a complement to the evolution of technology. And I've observed other parts of the world, their airports also have evolved their technology. We have CT scan, and then we have algorithm. They are updated. The axioms of the software were also updated to identify erratic behavior of the passengers and crew. So this is good in the evolution of the aviation industry.
Okay, Prof. The government also, right, actually has instructed the Malaysian aviation groups to actually also do review to do background reviews lah, basically, when it comes to their pilots and co-pilots.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think this one is linked to because
Yep.
the pilots pilot in question was also high at that time.
Yes, correct.
Right. But then, because a lot of people who are also in the know when it comes to aviation, it's like, okay, if you're a second officer, that means that you're not actually actively like flying
yeah.
the aircraft.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean that you
Yes.
can be high.
Yes, correct.
Right? But how common are these sort of reviews, especially when it comes to the health screening of pilots?
That is a very good question. ICAO Annex 1, they have stipulated what will be the screening protocol with regards to the health and fidelity of the pilot. And it is stipulated there should be constant testing of this pilot, but no numerical values are given by ICAO. It's actually the prerogative of the airlines or the
see.
state to actually derive what would be the minimum testing volume for a pilot for that particular year. So this is where the loophole is this. Do we actuate testing for every flight before each flight? I can actually capture any airlines that do illegal substance detection before each
Every flight,
Yeah, before
yeah.
each flight. I can't detect any cases with regards to that. So we are following. Malaysia Airlines are following the international standard. So if you want Malaysia Airlines to actuate testing before each and every flight, that's not in accordance to the international norm. Of
But
course,
it can, right?
Yeah, it can be done, but involve high financial capital, high financial costs. So we have to take a balance. What would be the best possible scenario? How frequent should we test our pilots? Of course, safety is number one. It's always a priority in the aviation industry. So if you want to do testing before each and every flight, you can do that. And then you can have that very high integrity of safety, for example, for Malaysia Airlines. You can do that. But would that be an optimum approach?
You have to have that commitment as well.
Yeah, you
Financial
need
is one
commitment
thing.
as well.
Resources
And
is another thing.
Resources.
To test.
You need to have a group of testers that would test the urine of each and every technical crew and also perhaps the cabin crew as well. So it involves a lot of capital, a lot of efforts. So the best possible scenario is to prevent it before it happens. When you have that employment opportunities, for example, to be a cabin crew or to be the technical crew of, for example, Malaysia Airlines. Let me just capture this name here, Malaysia Airlines, as the example. You need to have that very rigid screening, not only based upon their technical dexterity, their technical skill, their technical aptitude, but upon their behavior as well. What is their moral compass? You need to ask them, what is their moral compass? You need to derive their moral compass. And it should be a constant observation of their technical crews and also the cabin crews and also a maintenance engineer as well and other personnel as well. So that we should be vigilant. We should be proactive. We should have that peer review being promulgated.
The peer review aspect is a lot of people don't realize, right?
Peer
Actually,
review being actuated
because that's where
by
you
Malaysia
experience.
Airlines.
Correct.
You have colleagues that would actually fly with you frequently every month. They would know your state of mind. Having an intoxicated pilot flying an airplane is quite dangerous for the crew and also for the passengers. I'm surprised there's no incident. There's no aircraft incident that happened because of this intoxicated pilot. Of course, he's pilot in training, second officer. He probably wouldn't fly that much as the main primary pilot.
But that was
still,
the gap, right?
Yeah.
Because the peer-to-peer sort of...
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people did ask that as well, including myself. It's like, takkan like the first officer or the captain, but without assigning blame again.
Yeah, correct.
Like, takkan you tak flag? Or is it just undetected because,
That's very true. So I think that should
there.
be implemented. The observation, being vigilant by your peers, that should be done. That should be actuated. So even though Malaysia Airlines, CAM follow Annex 1 of ICAO, still the big question mark is how constant for the authority or for the organization to do that testing upon their crew. Because what transpired upon that documentation of Annex 1 is constant. That's the word that was utilized in that documentation, constant. But there's no numerical value attached to it. So it's quite subjective. So how constant should you be?
Yeah, it's true. Okay, I mean, of course, we're talking this within the context of like having to perhaps add more security layers so we can improve the protection. Tapi there's also this question of whether or not like it will affect operational efficiency, kan?
Yeah.
So these are like bigger questions that we need to consider. And of course, if you're already like in that particular role, I mean, in aviation itself, safety is the first thing,
Yeah,
right?
true.
I've known myself personally, like pilots. I mean, you yourself, you're a retired pilot, right? So you know that safety is without a question, right? And then especially if you're handling a commercial flight, your responsibility is towards your passengers as
Yeah,
well.
that's
So
true.
if you yourself is not, you mean, up to that
true.
standard, then it's
Yeah, that's true. When I do my flight, usually I do flight testing with my crew. We test the integrity, we examine, we do analysis of the integrity of the airplane, of its engine or avionics or structure. So when me and my crew do the flight, actually the flight, when I command an airplane, I have to ensure that I'm healthy. I have to go through very stringent protocols with regards to the testing of illegal substance, with regards to mental health issue as well. So this is quite good for the organization. This is quite good for the client as well. Good for the passengers because we want that integrity to be imposed during flight. We want that fidelity to be imposed during flight.
right. Okay, Prof, going into at least the future of aviation security, right? Because I'm sure you've seen the multiple sort of environments of in like airport security standards or the aviation security standards across the globe, right? So the threats obviously today are evolving, but at least what are some of the biggest aviation threat right now that you see underreported that you'd like to highlight?
Um, it would be the substance abuse because it's not an isolated case.
You mean among the cabin crews, you mean?
Technical crew, cabin crew, and also among the engineering personnel as well. Because when we have engineering technician or engineers that would actually sign off an airplane, because they need to sign off the airplane, they need to tell the organization that the airplane has the integrity to fly, the airplane is airworthy to fly. So when they sign off, they need to be in good mental health state. They need to be good in terms of their physical ability as well, in their thinking ability as well. So if they are intoxicated and they sign off an airplane that is not airworthy, what will happen to the airplane in the middle of the flight? Something will happen in the middle of the flight. There will be incident. So we do not want that. And this is not an isolated case. We have numerous cases when I look at the data from all over the world. So there are numerous cases where the engineering, maintenance personnel, the technician, even the technical crew, the cabin crew, they were not in good mental state. They were not in good physical state. They are intoxicated. Of course, we try to downplay the situation because safety is number one. Well, let's take a look at the data. When you take a look at the data, we can see that this. Even though that perhaps account to 5% or perhaps 2 or 3 or
This
3%.
is within the context of a global
Global
observation
perspective,
lah. Okay.
global perspective. If we take a look at that percentage, still that would actually be one of the factors, one of the reason for flight incidents. So we do not want that to happen. We try to minimize that. So I think we have a role to play. The organization have the role to play. The authorities have a role to play in try to mitigate that situation.
Okay, technology itself as well, right, Prof? Since we're still on that topic, is also evolving to address the threats that
Yep,
are evolving.
that's
But
true.
are Malaysian standards, especially when it comes to the technology, up to par with at least okay lah, Japan, because that's like in Asia. But or where do we aspire to be at
I
least,
see.
if you may suggest?
All right. The technology imposed upon Kuala Lumpur International Airport is actually on par with other international airport, but there are always room for improvement. There are always spaces for improvement. For example, the evolution of crimes. There are cases where criminals would actually encapsulate the illegal substance with different types of materials, and the encapsulation follows certain dimensions, certain density as well. And when that product, when that goods go through the CT scan or go through the X-ray machine, it could not be detected. So this is the evolution of crime. So the technology, it should have a new updated algorithm, because this software are driven by the mathematical algorithm. So the mathematical algorithm will tell the software how do you detect the pattern, how do you detect the illegal substances through the contour, through the density, and also through the dimension or shapes of this product, of this good. So that algorithm should also be updated as well.
Understood. I
Yes.
mean, just for I don't know whether this is a fun fact for our audience or whatever, but it's not isolated to KLIA, but it's just in terms of like generally how criminals
Yeah.
try to evade
Yes,
detection
true.
via the screen.
Yeah.
They would use materials such as like clay or ceramic or
Yep.
something like that untuk
Yes.
pantulkan
Yes,
balik kan.
correct.
I mean, sometimes like, okay, for us even, like we have this dilemma. Should we report things like this or not? Because then we're telling others how to use it
Yes,
differently. But this is something that y'all need to understand, the creativity
Yeah.
of all these
Because
criminals.
criminals are geniuses,
Yeah.
but except at the wrong spectrum of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
So these are geniuses. They would read upon technology. They would observe the technology, the evolution of the technology, and they would try to overcome that fidelity, the integrity of the technology. So they have many different approaches to actually beat the X-ray scan, the CT scan. And one of them, as you mentioned, is to actually use clay. This actually disturbs the density analysis of the CT scan and also the X-ray machine. So this is quite a very genius approach by these criminals, because they have this knowledge as well. So they try to keep abreast with the technology that were implemented.
So these are what like the technologies have to also update
Yes,
themselves, right?
correct.
Because if they see
Yes,
things
true.
like this, nothing is what it seems.
Yes,
So you
true.
have to have another layer of actually vetting
Yes,
there, right?
correct. So that's why it is best to update the axiom and also the mathematical algorithm of this software. Do that in a very periodic fashion, in a very structured fashion, perhaps every 6 months, every year. Or if you gain information that the ring of criminals has updated their approach, then you can update the axiom every 3 months based upon that information that you have gathered.
Prof, because we have less than 10 minutes,
All right.
but then I still want to ask like specific questions too. Like, okay, for instance, like KLIA, if you were to analyze yourself, the airport behaviorally, what sort of crime factors that attracts that the airport attracts most compared to others in the region?
I see.
For instance, like okay, in Vietnam, perhaps like Vietnam and Thailand or Vietnam and ni, usually the criminalities is dari segi the illegal goods in terms of like the dry foods and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
correct,
Tapi if
correct.
like in Malaysia, what are we known for? I mean, unfortunately now it's like drugs.
That's quite a tough question. I always take a look in a very positive way. But if you want me to capture that negative essence of Kuala Lumpur International Airport,
Just so that we can actually,
of course, we
nip it in
want
the
to gain
bud,
that feedback loop. We want to gain that feedback so we can improve the system. I think that there should be another layer of security. For example, in some airports, some international airports, they have several layers of security, meaning that when you enter a certain area, you have that scanning process being actuated. And when you go through area number 2, another scanning process actuated. And when you go to area number 3, another scanning process to be actuated. So that we can deter the blind spot, the unearth of the blind spot, the establishment of the blind spot. Because during, for example, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, in between, there perhaps an insider that would actually put or insert illegal substances upon the baggage of the passengers or baggage of the crew, baggage of the technical crew, for example. So that's why when you have different zones, and in each zone you have that scanning processes going on, you can deter that insider job. Because perhaps the technical crew or the passengers are working with insider that have access to several different zones.
So you're trying to say the extra layer of screening based on the zones can be added to our
It
airport
can be added so that we can deter, we can eradicate that insider job.
Betul, because I think in one airport that I've been to, obviously, I think in Istanbul or something like that. When you enter the airport, even the entrance you scan.
Yep.
And then for immigration, you scan.
Yep.
And then in the gate, you scan.
Yep,
Nak naik
correct.
flight pun, you scan.
Yes,
So there's like
that's
4
true.
times, 3
Yeah.
to 4 lah, basically.
Yeah,
So,
correct.
yeah.
Because this is insider job is very, very extensive. Because when you go through the scanning of zone 1 and zone 2, and then perhaps there's an insider that have access to zone 3, and so perhaps he or she could put that illegal substances into the baggage of the technical crew or the passengers or the
Well,
cabin crew as well.
Better safe than sorry,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Especially when it comes
Yeah.
to security processes here. Okay, Prof. Finally, okay, we're gonna address the misconceptions about airport security. But before we go into the quick fire, in terms of one misconception when it comes to airport security that you'd like to address, what are those? Is it a system is always 100 foolproof? Security is always 100% layered, or what? What is one misconception you'd like to address?
Any system in the world is not foolproof. System is made by man. Man is not perfect. And any system, if you take a look at many different cases all around the world, they can be bogged down. This system can have misnomers upon them. There would be breakdown of the system at many different parts of the system. Even though it had been tested, let's say 1,000 times, it doesn't mean it is perfect. So you need to acknowledge that. Even airports like a great airport like Heathrow and Narita, they also have systems that have been bogged down. If you look at historical data, there are breakdown of the system. So we need to acknowledge that. As a human being, we need to acknowledge the system that we develop will not be foolproof. The system that we develop, there will be a time that it will be breakdown, that it requires maintenance. It requires updates of the algorithm, updates of the software. So we need to acknowledge that. So when we acknowledge that, then only we know that whenever an issue happens, we have that feedback loop so we can improve upon the system. So that needs to be acknowledged.
Understood. Okay, let's go into our rapid fire, Prof. I mean, in one sentence, if you're able to answer this. What sort of technology will become standard practice, especially when it comes to airport security or aviation security in general?
It will be the integration of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is derived from a mathematical process, derived from mathematical models, neural network, linear programming, genetic algorithm, and all of these tools integrated into AI. It is to help the human being. It will not replace the human being, but it would aid the human being in making the decision. And this is what is good with technology. It evolves. So AI will evolve as well, so that the fidelity will be much higher than the previous one. And this will actually help the personnel in actuating his or her functionalities.
So it's actually macam making the airport more smarter in that sense.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. Next one would be one habit a passenger should always adopt to improve security, because we've always been thrown this responsibility back to the personnel of the airport, or at least to the cabin crew, but for them themselves as passengers, right, or patrons, because obviously airports are actually like shopping malls.
Yeah,
because
true.
if you ask any general Malaysians, like, oh, nak hantar pergi airport, yeah, I want to go, let's go. It's like a family thing sometimes, right?
Correct.
So
passengers, when they embark upon a flight, they should be observant of the rules and regulation imposed by the airlines. Because when you go to the counter for check-in, they have rules and regulation. Power bank, where should you put your power bank? Liquid, where should you put your liquid? Your aerosol. And what about the volume of the liquid? Not more than 100 milliliters. My wife here is a DG instructor, dangerous good instructor as well. She always reminds me that when I do my packing, you can't do this. This is what you can do. You can actually bring this volume of liquid. So passengers need to be vigilant as well. They need to help the security as well. They need to help to get that flight at its best integrity, at its best fidelity. So this is a collective effort. So we all need to be proactive so that we can have that fidelity in flight, so we can have the integrity at the airport as well.
Understood. Well, thank you so much, Associate Professor Major Dr. Mohamed Harridon Mohamed Suffian, for your insights for today. I think we've covered a lot, very extensive, from the security protocols to the behavior of certain criminalities and how the airports should respond. And then also the systems that we are about to impose on, whether or not it actually is optimized, or are we just creating more redundancy, right? Prof, if you would, just to end the show, again, if you would like to address one matter, especially when it comes to KLIA's airport scrutiny, especially when it comes to the safety standards, what would it be?
In the aviation industry, safety is number one. So there should always be a collective effort by the authorities of the airport and the authorities of the flight, CAM, and also the organization, Malaysia Airlines. They should coalesce their expertise so that they can alleviate their level of security at the airport and also during flight.
Thank you so much. Very nicely put as well. Well, that's all that we have for today. If you do like this particular episode, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to also turn on the notification bell if you haven't already. You'll not only get NST Beyond the Headlines update, other NST Online's news reports will be delivered to you. Of course, developments of whatever we've just discussed and the government intervention, especially to beef up the security at KLIA, right? Follow us on our socials. We're everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, as well as X, TikTok, and Threads. My name is Amalina Kamal, and we'll see you next week.